Hello and welcome. You're watching News Now on News Central TV. I am Judith TV. The top stories at this hour: military concludes investigation, indicts 2 officers in the 2023 Tudun Biri drone attack. President Buikai signs order to set up war crimes tribunal in Liberia. Kenya and Tanzania brace for cyclone Haidia amidst heavy rains. Details shortly. We start the news at this hour with security matters starting in Nigeria, where the Nigerian military has concluded or completed its investigation on the drone bombing of the Tudun Biri village in Kaduna State, indicting 2 Nigerian army officers. The officers will face court-martial as the operation should not have occurred. The Director of Defense Media Operations, Edward Buba, revealed this during a press briefing at Defense Headquarters on Thursday. The bombing of Tudun Biri village in Kaduna State, which took place on December 3rd, 2023, resulted in numerous casualties during a Maulud celebration. 2 days later, the National Emergency Management Agency reported bearing 85 bodies. And joining us now on the news is Chidi Omeje. He's a security expert and he joins us to discuss this further. Chidi, thank you so much for coming on. Let's get started. If the officers had some sort of, technical expertise on operations of this drone, how easy would it be to tamper with or even bypass drone security protocols?
Thank you for having me. I don't think we can go to the extent of saying that they bypassed drone protocols and whatever, but I think what we've been told right now from the statement coming from GHQ is that the 2 officers, were indicted for act of omission or commission, in other words, mistake. And mistakes don't happen. Of course, mistakes often happen if you are dealing with technology. It's not always what you set out to do that you achieve most times with technology. There are bound to be some failures. It could be as a result of their negligence, it could be a result of their incompetence, it could be a result of the problem with the device itself. So we don't have those details yet, but we must acknowledge the fact that the military have been forthright so far on this matter. The fact that they were able to constitute this inquiry and then had given us this, information yesterday, to me is just another is kudos to them. Maybe in the fullness of time, they will release the full report and we'll get to see exactly the extent of this, negligence or mistake or whatever it is that happened.
Chidi, you keep saying that it's a mistake or negligence, but the military said that it wasn't a mistake and it wasn't negligence, that they were trained and they ought to have known better.
No, I have the report. I read the report from that general, and he said it was, an act of omission or commission. And he said that this mistake will not happen again. It's a mistake. You think it's a deliberate action on the part of the military or the part of those guys?
But the attack was not authorized. It was not authorized for it to have happened. So how were they able to bypass every protocol to have used it?
That statement, the guy that released yesterday did not, tell us that the thing was not authorized. All we saw there from the statement was that it was, act of omission or commission. So, and then in another paragraph, he said that he was assuring Nigerians that such mistake won't happen again. So I'm not sure the man didn't tell us that the 2 officers in question went out of their way and deployed the drones without, express authority, orders from the superiors. So except you have a different statement from the one I have, but what I have here is that this is an act of omission or commission, and that that because they've set up a court martial, that it will be sub judice to give us details. So, but I don't know if you have a fuller details, but the one I have, the one he released yesterday, says that it's an act of omission or commission, and that such mistake will not repeat itself again. So it was more like an assurance. That's what I think. That's what I'm talking about.
An act of omission, an act of omission, negligence, whatever language we use to describe this. One thing is for certain: the attack was not authorized. This is in a village that is in Kaduna State, and so it makes me to ask a bigger question about this incident and how. Do you think that this incident highlights the need for a more robust national defense system against aerial threats like technologies like drones?
I agree with you. I agree with you that what had happened, just tells us that there's need for us to, look much more serious towards technology-driven uh, combat operations, because that's the way, that's the trend. All over the world, people deploy technology to assist them. And drone technology is something that we need to appropriate even more, intensely, because it will help us a lot. We don't have much boots on ground to cover these ungoverned spaces. So what naturally comes to help is the drone technology. So yes, our national anti-terrorism policy and stuff must mainstream technology to assist us, because that's the way to go. If you are not able to have enough boots on the ground, or adequate eyes in the sky, then the best thing to do is to seek the assistance of technology. So it's something that we must put our resources and commitment towards, because it's going to be very, very, very valuable. I agree with you.
Right. I mean, emerging technologies, drone attacks is one. What steps can be taken to prevent similar drone attacks from happening in the future? Whether this was incidental, whether this was a case of negligence, this was a case of omission, what steps can our security agencies and very high intelligence such as these, the Army, implement now to avoid a future occurrence?
Please, let's put it this way. Despite this setback, despite this tragedy that occurred, the Nigerian military should not, for any reason, step back, away from technology. They must even go further. All they need to do is to fine-tune the operations. All they need to do is to make sure that the due diligence, make sure that all the loose ends are tied. Because technology is something, if you one little mistake can lead to enormous damage. So I think that what has just happened. So the onus is on them to make sure that they even train our officers more in this new field of.
We'll try to get that connection back. But in the meantime, we'll move now to South Nigeria. Now, this one is a riddle that we are still trying to solve. Why would a mother carry a pregnancy for 9 months, birth the child, and after a year and 4 months decided to end the child's life? Now, this is the riddle that the police in Delta State, South Nigeria, are still trying to solve. Now, the suspect is currently in custody of the police in Asaba, the Delta State capital, and investigations are ongoing. News Central's Austin Azu completes the story.
Recently, residents of Delta State have expressed concerns over the current insecurity challenges across the state. The Delta State Commissioner of Police is here to address the media about the recent achievements.
Members of the press and Deltans were told of the deployment of this special deployment to Ughelli axis. I would like to tell you that we have made tremendous progress. Then I told you there were 3 gangs who have picked up a number of people.
The Delta State Police Command informed journalists of the arrest of a 24-year-old lady from Isoko South local government area of the state, said to have dumped her child of 1 year and 4 months old in a well along the road in Araya community, Isoko South local government area. The CP said children who went to play around the tree discovered the abandoned child floating on the well.
For us, it's a sad one. You will not know what it is that will make a mother dump a child into the well. It's an unfortunate thing.
Other achievements recounted by the police include arrest of a suspect who produces fake alcoholic drinks. Others are arrest of a suspected kidnappers, notorious car snatchers, cultists, armed robbers, rescue of kidnapped victims, recovering of 12 vehicles, arms and ammunition.
I'm assuring Nigerians in general and Deltas in particular that the policing strategies adopted in Ughelli will be replicated in other areas where we might be having similar challenges. My promise to the good people of Delta State remains the same, which is to ensure that Deltas sleep with their 2 eyes closed.
The arrested suspects involved in infanticide and others narrated their level of involvement.
I did have the intention to kill my own child because her father rejected the baby and my grandmother rejected me and the baby too. And my parents that gave birth to me as late. Look back, I look front, I did not see anybody. That is why I did it.
I was just sitting inside a keke, then probably we'll just move around. Maybe when the sixth person, well, it's just to entice people to enter inside the keke. Then that's just the role I play inside, then I'll move out from there.
The State Commissioner of Police has called for the support of residents of the state for effective policing system in the state. But meanwhile, this suspect being paraded for various offenses will have their various days in courts. In Asaba, Delta State for News Central, Austin, Azu.
And now to the commercial capital of Nigeria, which is Lagos State, where images circulating on social media on Thursday had it that the popular Ilekpo market in Lagos was set ablaze after several gangs clashed in the area. But apparently, this isn't the case. The fire came from an abandoned dumpster in the area and not the market. Our correspondent Bernard Akade visited the dumpster and reports.
Contrary to stories on social media, the Ilekpo market is safe. The fire was from an abandoned dumpster close to the market. Firefighters could be seen trying to put out the fire, which was now fueled by plastic waste, sending poisonous smoke into the atmosphere, while police officers patrolled the area to maintain law and order. According to social media, rival gangs from opposing ethnic groups had a clash, which resulted in setting the market on fire. On arriving the scene, there were different accounts as to what exactly happened, and most of the eyewitnesses chose to speak off camera, except for this recycler who claimed to have lost about 4 million naira's worth of goods to the fire.
I heard that a boy played Baba Ijebu, and I think whether they say he won 14,000 and they pay him 12,000 naira. That is what caused the issue in the market, not here. But I don't know why they brought the issue to this dump site to destroy our material. Like this morning, my truck was parked there. I was about loading when the police came and chased everybody out. Now they have destroyed the whole thing with their fire. There is the police people that put the fire here.
We made attempts to go further into the dumpster for further investigation, but had to turn back for health and safety reasons.
Thankfully, the situation is not as bad as was earlier thought. The market is safe and has not been burnt down. But there clearly are concerns from this particular story. First is the environmental hazard from setting dumpsters like this ablaze. People living around are exposed to smoke, which clearly is unhealthy. Then there's the case of plastic waste, which has been a topic of conversation for so many years. Plastic like this can burn for several hours. And then, of course, there's the case of safety around dumpsters like this as well. Dumpsters can harbor criminal activities. The hope is that the government will put all its attention to all of these issues raised from here. In Lagos for News Central, I'm Bernard Akede.
Let's now bring you a special report on the demolition of illegal dolphin underbridge settlement. The Lagos State government has uncovered a network of makeshift apartments beneath the Dolphin Estate Bridge in the Highborough area of Ikoyi, where tenants reportedly paid 250,000 naira per annum for a room. Now, in this special report, or rather on this investigative report, we had a special journalist who sent in this report. Take a look.
This video of a man taking his bath under the Dolphin Estate Bridge at the Ikoyi axis of Lagos State was received by the Lagos State's Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources, Tokunbo Wahab, sent to him by a concerned citizen on Tuesday. Upon receiving the video, the Commissioner swung into action, immediately ordering the commander of the enforcement team of the ministry, retired Major O.O. Cole, to move to the location and secure the property from illegal settlers and environmental violators. Arriving at the location the next day, Major Cole and his men were amazed at what they found.
Hey, I'm not showing you my ID card. You are living here, are you living here? Yes.
A total of 86 rooms partitioned with woods and other materials and a metal container allegedly used for different illegal activities were discovered under the Dolphin Estate Bridge. Tenants here part with a sum of 250,000 naira per annum for the makeshift apartments under the bridge. The occupants have since been evicted and demolition of the apartments long begun.
all the sand put under the bridge for a kind of protection, they were excavated and they started putting structures, 86 rooms. You can imagine somebody removing sand that's going to give protection to a facility, a bridge, and putting structure there and collecting money from people. That is sabotage.
These occupants are said to have carried on with normal daily life under the bridge with their families sleeping, cooking, congregating, and some others walking and soliciting for customers, as was the case of the commercial sex workers that were alleged to have run a brothel at the location. This posed an obvious recipe for disaster, as it was discovered that some occupants had gallons of fuel stored up for their generators in these makeshifts constructed majorly with wooden materials. Who collect money from you for this place?
Mopo.
Mopo?
Ben.
Mopo?
Yes.
How much?
250.
And last month we came here, but though the man gave my mom 50,000 naira yesterday, and he said he will see us today. So we don't know, maybe he will come back or not.
This is how the residents, the occupants of this illegal shanty that was constructed right under the Dolphin Bridge, were set to be getting access to water which they use to carry out domestic activities and cooking as well. Back at the office, armed with just the payment receipt obtained from one of the tenants, we extracted a phone number believed to be that of the man at the center of it all, simply known as Mopol, whose real name we discovered is Benga Emmanuel Oluwafemi.
No estate chairman in Dolphin that will never say that he did not know me. Even there are some people in Lagos State that they are in power in Lagos State, that they live in that place. They know us very well. Blue container they demolished, they cut this morning. That container has been there for going to 15 years now. That the previous government did it for us here. The person that did this container, first of Kiamo, he was the one passing by. He said, what are we doing here? We said that we are security to the street light here. He said that if we are security, where are you people hiding yourself? If rain is falling, where are you people staying? He said, okay, don't worry, I will complain, I will know what to do. They will come and build little things. I've never refunded any money to anybody, and I don't think I've ever if I'm collecting 250,000, I will not be in that place again.
Mr. Benga denied collecting money from anyone, contrary to evidence of payment receipts for tenancy obtained from some evicted occupants. The growth of population in metropolitan Lagos has assumed geometrical proportion, and the provision of urban infrastructure and housing to meet this demand is not at a commensurate level. An online report by Business Day in February 2023 says this has resulted in an acute shortage of housing for the teeming population, with Lagos alone accounting for about 5 million deficit, representing 31% of the estimated national housing deficit of 18 million. Lagosians are not likely to have seen the last of such shanties or makeshift apartments, especially under the numerous bridges in Lagos State. Neither have we seen the last of the operations of officers and men from the enforcement team of the State Ministry of Environment, as they hope to carry out more raids and dismantling of illegal settlements in the coming days. For News Central, Marshal Anthony Onoye.
You're watching news now on News Central TV. We'll take a short break. Stay with us, don't go anywhere. And welcome back. Justice Kehinde Ogundare of the Federal High Court sitting in Ikoyi, Lagos on Thursday, May 2nd, 2024, adjourned the further hearing in the trial of Pascal Okechukwu, aka Cubana Chief, till June 5th, 2024. Okechukwu was arraigned on Wednesday, April 17th, 2024 by the EFCC on a 3-count charge bordering on abuse of the naira. The two of the counts read that Okechukwu Pascal abused the naira on 2 separate events. At the resumed sitting of the court on Thursday, Okechukwu, through his lawyer Chika Osulu Ujuku, told the court about a plan by his client to enter a plea bargain with the EFCC. Ujuku also sought to withdraw his earlier preliminary objection filed on April 24, 2024, challenging the jurisdiction of the court to entertain the charge. The prosecution counsel did not oppose the withdrawal of the application. And now to discuss this further, we're joined by a legal practitioner, Elvis Asia, and he joins us live via video chat. Elvis, a very good morning to you. Let's get started very quickly. How does the decision of Cubana's lawyer to settle out of court with EFCC reflect on its, approach to combating Naira abuse?
Well, I mean, it's a strategy that is open to the defendant in the criminal proceedings. The relevant provisions of the EFCC Act, which the lawyer referred to, clearly gives the EFCC the powers to compound an offense. Compounding meaning that the EFCC can have an arrangement with the defendant, have a settlement arrangement with the defendant to pay some money or fine or whatever, in exchange for the withdrawal of the action. So it's something that is open, that's open to the defendant to do. And of course, don't also forget that there are also issues as to whether or not the EFCC actually has the legal competence to prosecute this kind of charge. And so, both parties can decide to meet midway. And again, the whole idea of trying to discourage the abuse of Naira, which has become an epidemic in our society, it's, to some extent been achieved whether or not there's a settlement. At least now people are aware that, it is criminal to abuse the Naira the way and manner we have been doing over the years. And I also hope that part of the settlement should be that Mr. Pascal should use his social media presence, to educate members of the public on the issue. So it's a smart move. There's a legal precedent for it. The only challenge I have is whether or not that section 14, section 2 of the EFCC Act can actually be used to compound this offense. Because the abuse charge is not an offense under the EFCC Act, it's an offense under the CBN Act. And by virtue of that section 14, it is actually the EFCC has the power to compound offenses under the EFCC Act. Well, that's a technicality which I believe that can be settled out during the course of this out-of-court settlement.
Let's look at the out-of-court settlement between Cubana chief priest and the EFCC. What are the implications of these in enforcing the Central Bank Act and similar regulations?
Well, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, it's a legal strategy that is open to the defendant, and it's something that the EFCC has the powers to do. Yes, I would have hoped that we would continue to be very strict on this in order to ensure that we nip this at the ball, because there are so many issues that can arise from the abuse of land. It can be an instrument for money laundering, because imagine if criminals have access to huge cash, for example, and then they go to the party straight, it masks the origin of that fund. The money cannot become legitimate. The man can go to the bank and deposit it and say, oh, I had a party, and then I was paid money. So it's a very serious offense. And then you look at the impact on our society. What it's doing to young people, the craze for money, and so it's something I would have expected that we should continue to be strict, but we should do it legally. We should do it within the confines of the law. Have the appropriate authority should be the ones to prosecute, because there's, like I said, the issue that's hanging on EFCC as well, it really has the power to do so, because the CBN Act is not one of the things that I think the EFCC is empowered to enforce. And so you are right that we should continue to insist on strictness, and I think that was what made the judge in the Bobrisky's case to be very strict by imposing both a fine and imprisonment, instead of an option of fine, so that this can serve as a deterrent to other member society. But again, some of the goals of discouraging people have been achieved. Like I said earlier, people are now aware that this is a crime, and I hope that part of the settlement in this particular case will be for the Cubana chief priest to use the social media presence to orchestrate a fight against Naira abuse.
Elvis, You just mentioned the Bobrisky case, and so before I would let you, I don't want us to skip away from that because that was very important. Which takes me to my next question about how the judiciary's response, if you compare it to recent cases, and case in point, Bobrisky's 6-month imprisonment. What does this? When you look at their comparison, he has Bobrisky. She has 6 months imprisonment, and then there's the chief priest Cubana and his alleged abuse and how this has been now going out of court. What does this reveal about the sentencing disparity in similar offenses?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, yes, members of the public may suspect it and begin to think perhaps it's because one party has more influence on the judiciary. That may not necessarily be the case, because in sentencing, the judges have no discretion. For example, the punishment for abuse of the naira, it's a fine of not less than 50,000 or a term of imprisonment of 6 months, or both. So a judge can decide to give an option of fine. A judge can decide to give imprisonment, like it was done in Bobrisky's case, or award both a fine and imprisonment. So legally speaking, the judiciary will be within its legal limits to either give a fine, give, like I said, and then the EFCC also, by virtue of Section 14, also has the power to compound offenses. And today, under the current administration of criminal justice in Nigeria, you actually have, the novel idea of plea bargain. The prosecutors can have an arrangement with defendants now, have an agreement which will be entered as, which will be considered by the judge in sentencing. So all of these are all available legally. So these are legal, these are within legal parameters. So it now depends on the strategy that was adopted by a particular case. And don't forget that in sentencing and judgments, judges are judges are swayed by the case before them and legal arguments and the strategy that are adopted by the parties, provided they are within the limits of the law. So you cannot really fault the judiciary for giving imprisonment in one case and giving a fine in another case. That is something that the law allows.
Elvis, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you for doing this with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, still on corruption, anti-corruption stakeholders and pro-transparency organizations have raised an alarm over an alleged plot to sabotage the fight against corruption in Nigeria. They made this warning in the nation's capital, Abuja, saying there is a plan to target the nation's anti-corruption agencies and the judiciary. Joshua Imarai tells us more.
With Nigeria's anti-graft agencies targeting high-profile politically exposed persons, many will admit that the war against graft is on course. Pro-transparency agencies in Nigeria have, however, raised an alarm over an alleged plot by some individuals to stifle the effort against corruption. They say efforts are already in play to sabotage the recent successes achieved and have concluded plans to shield wanted persons from scrutiny and investigation.
Over the past few weeks, we have observed with great concern the malicious attacks and deliberate effort to blackmail anti-corruption agencies through sponsorship, influencers, insensitive opinion publication in some national dailies, online and electronic platforms, all targeted at discouraging anti-corruption efforts and shielding people who have actually looted this country from being investigated.
The agencies are saying that this is a clear case of corruption fighting back. Some of them believe that to effectively combat corruption and make significant strides towards progress, it is crucial to adopt a cohesive strategy that ensures that the anti-corruption war is no respecter of persons.
We recommend the following. 1, growing concerns over the declining levels of autonomy and integrity of the judiciary must be addressed. 2, to truly establish a flourishing democracy, transparency and accountability must be strictly adhered to in governance. 3, we urge the ruling All Progressives Congress Party and other political parties to take decisive action in purging its ranks by denouncing and breaking support with their members who are currently being investigated by anti-corruption agencies. 4. Adequate resource allocation to the anti-corruption agencies has become imperative to uphold their independence and enhance efficiency in the anti-corruption process.
They further urged the Inspector General of Police to promptly reinstate the police personnel withdrawn from the Kaduna State Anti-Corruption Commission so as not to stall the commission from executing its duties effectively. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarayi.
As part of ongoing efforts to improve trade operations, increase revenue, and ensure ease of doing business in and around the ports, the Nigerian Customs Service has launched an initiative to improve business experience. The Comptroller General of Customs, Adewale Adeniyi, during a stakeholders meeting on Thursday in the nation's capital, Abuja, said that the program, which is part of other innovations already developed, will boost the nation's revenue drive and foster economic growth. Marvelous Obomanu reports.
Trade facilitation in Nigeria has always remained a problem, frustrating entrepreneurs and large business communities from effortlessly carrying out entrepreneurial activities without hitches. However, to address these shortcomings, the Nigeria Customs Service has launched a program called Advanced Ruling, which aims to redefine the processes involved in either importing and exporting goods and services using the ports.
We need to put in place concrete measures to facilitate trade. And we also discovered, we share this concern with them because we believe that if we facilitate trade, it will have impacts on revenue. So this is why we have brought in a number of these initiatives. Advanced ruling is just one of them. We are already finalizing our plans towards the Authorized Economic Operator Program. We are conducting a TRS to know where delays exist in the clearance chain.
The Nigeria Customs Service says it intends to rake in 5.07 trillion naira revenue at the end of 2024. Daring as such projection can be, the service said such innovation as this will help the agency inch closer to achieving that big dream.
This is one of the initiatives. I mean, if we facilitate trade, we are going to increase the turnover of business. We're going to increase the turnaround period for them. There are a lot of other initiatives that we are doing to ensure that, we meet these targets. Internally, we are also making efforts to see how we can review these targets, to see whether we can actually go beyond what government has given us. It's an ongoing process, and I'm very optimistic that we would do it.
Stakeholders commended the initiative, expressing willingness to contribute their own quota.
We are partnering with Customs, supporting them to implement this advanced ruling. It is their product, it is their process, but we want to support them going forward in the implementation now, because a lot of stakeholder awareness creation has to be done. So we need to speak with the industry, we need to speak with all the stakeholders that are part of the process to understand the advanced ruling so that the ease of doing business or importation into Nigeria will be much better.
Before this initiative, the Nigeria Customs Service says that in 2024 it had launched a time-release study to advance the nation's trading experience through innovation. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obomanu.
Coming up, President Boakai signs order to set up war crimes tribunal. We'll bring you details after the break. Don't go anywhere. Liberian President Joseph Boakai has signed an executive order to set up a long-awaited war crimes court more than 2 decades after the end of the country's devastating civil wars. The order is a major step towards establishing the tribunal, which Boakai said would help to bring justice and closure. About 250,000 people died in Liberia's 2 civil wars between 1989 and 2003. The conflicts saw widespread atrocities, including mass killings, rape, and the forced recruitment of child soldiers. Some in Liberia have opposed the court's creation, saying it risks reopening old wounds. And now to South Africa. Away from South Africa, by the way, forgive me for that. We move now to BRICS, as the BRICS says the formation of a new currency in the global markets to challenge the U.S. dollar's supremacy is at an advanced stage. The alliance says its aim is to uproot the U.S. dollar from the world's reserve and replace it with the new BRICS currency. The battle to dominate the financial sector kick-started after the White House pressed sanctions on Russia and other developing countries. Meanwhile, a handful of countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America are considering cutting ties with the U.S. dollar. Analysts say ditching U.S. will affect economies for many countries. And joining us now on the news is Professor Bunke Dumisa, an independent economist from Durban, South Africa. Welcome and thank you so much for coming on. Let's get started very quickly. How viable do you think the financial reforms proposed by BRICS countries are in practice?
They are very practical, and in fact, to prove that, before I deal with the other issues, to prove that this will work, BRICS has just released a report where they report that they've been able to have more than $260 worth of international trade without using the US dollar. The reason why it is important for countries to follow this, we call it the de-dollarization process. The reason why they want to de-dollarize their trade, it is because America and its allies have been weaponizing the US dollar, where America is fighting its many proxy wars, and that affected the BRICS countries. And in South Africa, we know very well that in May 2023, their ambassador to South Africa said something nasty about South Africa, and the rand lost its value immediately. So the BRICS countries want to avoid that. And it's not necessarily to replace the US dollar as the reserve currency for other countries who are not part of BRICS, but they are saying for BRICS countries, they need an alternative which will not necessarily strengthen the US dollar.
In achieving this, right, there definitely will be challenges and even obstacles. So what are the challenges or obstacles that could arise in implementing these reforms?
The challenges to this is very interesting because India is currently the fourth largest economy in the world, and it is part of BRICS. And China is the second largest economy in the world. It is part of BRICS. These countries want to be independent of the US dollar when it comes to dealing with fellow BRICS countries. However, China is the largest bearer of the US dollar because it helps them to achieve that status that they've got the largest foreign currency reserves in the world, and those largest foreign reserves are in US dollars. So it may sound contradictory, but it's not. Sometimes you do have to fight different wars and achieve different results, which may seem contradictory. That's what is happening, but it is a practical option and it is already working, especially when it comes to countries like Russia, where the US tried its best to weaponize its US dollar to stifle the Russian trade.
Professor Dumisa, thank you so much for coming on and just giving more insight on this recent development. We appreciate you. And now to Kenya and Tanzania, as they are bracing for a cyclone on the heels of torrential rains that have devastated East Africa, killing more than 350 people and forcing tens of thousands from their homes. In addition to claiming 188 lives in Kenya since March, the floods have displaced 165,000 people, with 90 reported missing. The Interior Ministry said as the government warned citizens to remain on alert. The coastal region is likely to experience cyclone Hadiya, which will result in heavy rainfall, large waves, and strong winds that could affect marine activities in the Indian Ocean. Neighboring Tanzania, where at least 155 people have been killed in flooding and landslides, is also expected to feel the force of Hadiya. And now to business, where the Nigerian federal government says it will stop granting licenses to gas companies with no capacity to build pipelines for gas distribution. Now this, the government said, became necessary to discourage the transportation of compressed natural gas through the roads. The Minister of State for Petroleum Gas, Ekpo, made this disclosure while visiting Abeokuta for an on-the-spot assessment of the CNG explosion at Ita, Osun. And joining us on the news is Dr. Chinan Dikwal. He is the Vice Chairman, the African Energy Council, and he joins me live. Good morning, and let's get started. Financial viability and technical competence are part of the requirement for most tenders. Was this not applied in the sector before license were even given to begin with?
Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here. So, to your questions, were licenses, was financial, assessments and technical considerations done before licenses were issued? I would actually take a step back from that. Usually when things like this do happen, the causes of them are not very apparent. And we're very quick to rush down and say, it's either the recklessness of the driver or X, Y, and Z. But usually the right thing to do would be for us to undertake a root cause analysis, for us to determine, and it's a very systematic process, what the root cause analysis is. You would ask fundamental questions that help you to isolate exactly what happened. And once you localize what happened, then from there you develop mitigation circumstances around that. We haven't done that. I've seen it in the news already. There are lots of blame trading, even from officials, through to government officials. But that should not be the way. A full investigation should be happening right now so that we determine exactly what happened and then come up with solutions to solve it. But I was going to say, just real quick, normally in this kind of circumstance, there are several failures that all come together to make this big type of failure happen. It's a very tragic circumstance. I'm not sure you saw the videos, but it's a massive ball of fire that consumed one person and several cars and several shops. Now, usually there are several things. One is the overall failure of the system, the systemic failure. And when I say the systemic failure, what I mean by that is, we have a huge tanker that's carrying petroleum products, compressed natural gas, 250 bar, okay? So it's a lot of pressure, 250 times atmospheric pressure. It's a lot of pressure. What agencies are responsible for guiding that? Was the road safety involved? Did they make that happen? How about the fire service? All of those things in place. What's the state of the vehicle, the brakes? What government agencies need to ensure that before it gets to a road, that vehicle, is fit for purpose? Number two, there is the human factor, associated with that. What's the state of mind of the driver? Is he observing speed limits and all the things around that? What's his driving style like? All of those. And then beyond that, you have other technical details around, is the car even fit for purpose? That vessel, the pressure vessel. So all of these things come together to demonstrate this kind of failure. And I think that what we should be doing is undertaking a root cause analysis so we understand exactly what happened, as opposed to creating blame here and there.
Let's eliminate road transportation, shall we? And then look at our rails. Can rails be used as well?
It's a good one, without a doubt. We can use rail transportation, so a very smart question. If we do that and we have the network, then that means that some of these accidents could be minimized to a certain level. But bear in mind, even if you're using rail transportation, you've got to recognize that the rail will take you to a central depot, and then these vessels will still have to go to this depot and take it to the last mile. So usually the big problem is the last mile of delivery. The vessel goes, takes CNG, 250 bar, and the last mile delivery, to wherever it is. And that's usually where the challenges, you know. So yes, rail could work, but again, we go into the question of infrastructure. Do we have the rail infrastructure up and running? And again, just to bring to your attention, the minister said that probably going forward, we would look at piping. So anybody who takes a license, they would make it part of the mandate for them to build piping into the homes of Nigerians. That's also a great alternative. We have a huge amount of capital expenditure for anyone to. These are the fundamental questions that we need to deal with. And when you listen to the minister and some of these agencies that are pontificating, the truth about it is, if you ask me, much of the failure lies with government. Much of the failure, because we have these rules and laws in place, they are just not enforced. So if you look at what happened in Port Harcourt, I'm bringing that in now. You know, Port Harcourt around Element, we had that tanker that went down and went up in flames. It's exactly the same. Two vehicles collided. But the question there is, where's the road safety? Road safety commission. Did they know this flammable vessel was going to get onto the road? Where's the fire service? All of these things are systematic failures that government has failed to do. And then the roads, you go into a conversation of the state of the roads as well. That's also another issue, because sometimes they're so bad that they ultimately cause this situation.
And another thing to even look at is if you're laying the pipelines, what happens to maintenance? Because infrastructure and maintenance is a problem here in this part of the world. But Chinan, this was a wonderful conversation. Many thanks. We hope to have you on to go in depth on this another time. But many thanks for coming on.
Pleasure. Thank you. Thanks, Bob.
And that's all on the news at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Military concludes investigation, indicts 2 officers in the 2023 Tudun Biri drone attack. President Buhari signs order to set up war crimes tribunal in Liberia. We also told you that Kenya, Tanzania brace for cyclone Hadiya amidst heavy rains. Now remember that you can send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. And do make sure to follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith at TV.